Well, my original reason for coming down here today was to try and do a time lapse of the ice flow down the river. And as you can see, it has flowed to a standstill. There's probably 2 to 3 feet of ice in here, and it's all just stationary now. It's actually built up. I know that there's a mud bank on the end of there that I can normally sit on, and then there's about a 3-foot drop to the water. So it gives you an idea of how much water is in here today. It's actually quite a lot. So since I can't do my time lapse, I will mention a subject that I meant to bring up in one of my videos out in the mountains the other day, and it is what I call clickbait bushcraft. I see it everywhere now. It's taken over. It's like the hiking stuff did years ago. It all became about glamour and exposure and Instagram photos and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of bushcrafters seem to have gone the same way. When I'm looking through channels and finding information and looking stuff up and what have you, all I find now is a whole bunch of bikini-clad girls or in Lululemons doing yoga out in the forest, and the titles are "Solo Bushcraft Camp -20," you know, and I'm like winter snowstorm and all that other kind of tags that they like to put on these things, which is basically garbage. You know it is. So I was looking at some of the shelters that they'd built on there. And a lot of this information now is not just funny information, it's dangerous information. Because people don't realise how dangerous -20 is. Like, if you want to know how cold -20 is, you know, you go to the grocery store, you buy a slab of meat, you put it in your freezer, and your freezer at home is going to be about -15 to -18 degrees. 3 hours later, it's solid set like a rock. Well, if you go out camping for 10 to 12 hours overnight, in -20, -30, and you're not prepared, guess what? In the morning, you are a frozen slab of meat. That is all you are. You will die. And the sad thing is, if you go down with hypothermia, you won't even know you died. You'll just think you were shivering for a bit, and that's it. You fall asleep, you ain't waking up. You'll just be like this in the morning, block of ice. So the one I saw the other day, the people that had done the video, I'm not going to mention any names because I don't think that's fair. They'd built a shelter, which was basically a lean-to shelter with a few branches. They'd laid a few green boughs across the top to make it look green. In the bottom, on the snow, there was a hard packed layer of snow in the bottom of their shelter, and they'd put enough branches on it again to make it look green. And great, it was good for the video, and that was all it was intended for. But the title of the video was "Solo Overnight Snowstorm -20." Basically with little to nothing but a candle and half a wool blanket. Anybody that knows this stuff and does this stuff for real knows that you ain't waking up in the morning. You're as good as dead, done, finished, gone. So they had this little teepee fire that they'd built, which was next to useless. A teepee fire in those conditions is useless, which is why the Siberian log fire is big logs, you know, and that's what you need to burn overnight. That's the amount of wood you need. You need a vast amount of wood. And I was watching this particular video, and this person's laying in there dressed pretty much as I am. If I was at -20 in this, I'd be dead, done, finished. You're not going to survive. I mean, these are thermally insulated and all that kind of stuff. You're still not going to survive. You will die. Yeah, end of story. Not going to make it till the morning. It's a very sad fact that a lot of people are found dead, frozen on the streets, you know, in various cities and that around the world, and that's because they've gone down with hypothermia. The way to think of hypothermia, if this is 0, hypothermia, which is A, is above the line, hypothermia, which is below O, is 0. So hypothermia, you will start to shiver. And it's at that point, if you can stop yourself shivering, if you can physically say in your mind, I need to stop shivering, and you can, that is the time to get a humongous fire going, get lots of insulation, and really, really get down to it. Because when you start shaking violently, and trust me, it does happen. I've done sea survival training, and I've done Arctic survival training, where they actually expose you to those temperature drops. You only have to drop your core temperature a few degrees, and you really are in trouble. But fortunately, when you're doing it on a proper training course, you do have the medical people with you. And it is surprising how quick, like if you was in the water in here, it is very surprising how quick you will go down with hypothermia. And more importantly, how long it takes you to get your core temperature back up. That was the one thing that I found stunning. You can go into serious cold very, very fast. but to warm back up takes a very long time, and it's a very slow, gradual process. You can't just dump somebody in somewhere hot and expect them to survive, because chances are they're not going to. So again, watch these videos, take them with a pinch of salt, because most of them are just there as clickbait. That's all they are. It's just purely clickbait. You know, no woman in her right mind goes camping out in the middle of a forest in a snowstorm in a bikini or Lululemons. It just doesn't happen. Yeah, you will die or freeze to death. That's not bushcraft. That's just clickbait bushcraft, as I call it. If you're building a shelter on the ground, you need boughs, pine boughs. You need about a foot. If you haven't got a foot of boughs on the ground, because by the time you've slept on them overnight, they're only going to be about 6 inches thick. If you haven't got a foot on the ground, you're going to die. If you haven't got the top of the shelter, like the back of the shelter, if that's not all layered correctly with boughs, and again, needs to be about a foot thick. If it's not layered correctly, again, if it snows or the wind gets up or whatever, that shelter's next to useless. It's completely useless. It looks very good in a video, but it is basically useless. So learn how to do this stuff. There are many survival schools and outdoor schools out there that are very happy to teach you this stuff. You can do 1-day courses, 2-day courses, week courses, whatever, but they are run by people that really do know their stuff. They're not somebody that's just watched another YouTube video and thinks, oh, I can do that, that's easy, let's kick it up a notch and let's only use one blanket. Well, unfortunately, you then become a statistic, because some poor bugger's got to come and find you, or what's left of you, and you're just going to be frozen like a lump of this ice. That's it, done, finished. Just to make a video for your Instagram channel or your YouTube channel or whatever. Learn how to do this stuff properly. Enroll in a proper school, get some proper training. I was very lucky in my early career. I mean, I've done this stuff on and off for 50 years. But I was very lucky in my military training to actually get on some very good courses for exactly that. You know, so if that really did pay off, I learned a lot. So don't rely on what you see on these videos. A lot of people do, and they take all that stuff as being, oh, that's how you do it. If you've got a little TP fire, you ain't going to make it till morning. You need a decent long log fire. The logs need to be as long as you, as round as you can get them, and you need a good stack of them. I watched a guy do a video the other day, and he was sheltered under a tree. He built a decent long log fire, and he had a stack. He actually had 2 stacks of wood that were about this high, piled right up, big logs like this, 2 big piles of it plus piles of smaller stuff, and he burnt through all of that by morning. Literally, he had nothing left by morning. So that was either some very good judgment, or he let that fire die right down. But that's the amount of wood you need. And I keep seeing people making these videos, and yes, it looks good, and I'm sure people then subscribe to those channels because they want to see some girl in a bikini wandering around the woods, you know, pretending to be Grizzly Adams, you know, whatever. That's not the reality. That stuff, doing that stuff and not knowing what you're doing, can get you killed real fast. Like if you fall in this water, you've got a matter of minutes before you go hypothermic. Matter of minutes. And the chances, from where I am now, I'm very close to civilization. My car is only about 1.5 kilometers that way, I guess. I wouldn't make it back to my car. If I fell in this water and I was absolutely soaked, chances are I ain't going to make it back to my car. It is that serious a problem. So pay attention, you know, learn the skills, learn how to do it properly. Don't watch these videos and think, oh, that's it, I can just easily go out and do that, because that's not how it works. You need to learn the skills, learn how to do it properly. I don't want to see some person on the news or whatever frozen to death out in the forest because they're trying to make these videos. I see enough people falling off cliffs and what have you around here trying to get bloody pictures for their Instagram. A couple of years ago, a lady fell off a mountain out there. A lot of people want to get that photo because it is a very good photo. However, you know, there's a risk involved with it, and unfortunately she took the risk and fell off. And that's a long way down. That's hundreds of feet of sheer rock straight down. And there's been several of those throughout the years around here. People trying to get their fantastic pictures and look where I went, look how dangerous it was, and then oops, shit, that's it, you're done, finished, gone. Somebody's got to come and collect you off the bottom of the mountain, and I did that job years ago, search and rescue, and it's not very pleasant having to search the bottom of a mountain to try and find enough bits to put back in a body bag so that you can send it home to the family. That is not a pleasant task. And in case you want to know, bodies explode on impact. Yeah, the majority of bodies do not land in a nice crumpled heap like you see in movies and whatever. That does not happen. They usually explode as they hit rocks and stuff on the way down, and there's bits spread all over the show. Same with bushcraft. if you ever come across somebody that's frozen to death out in the middle of nowhere, fortunately I only ever saw one guy that had froze to death like that, and but he was literally solid as this ice. And until you experience stuff like that, people don't realise they take it all way too easily, and they go out and do these things and they're not prepared for it. So get some skills, do some training, get the right gear, make sure you got the right gear. You know, the gear I'm wearing now is not survivable in -20. It's just not. Yeah. Learn how to make fire, learn how to make a proper fire, a proper shelter. You know, something that's going to carry a snow load. Learn how to weave the sticks in. I see these people, they build a lean-to and they just pile it up with branches. The first bit of wind, that's gone. You have to lay the branches in the same way that nature made them. That's how I teach people how to do it. If you look at a branch on a fir tree, the branches are all spread out like this. That's to maximize the light collection. Well, when you lay them on your shelter, you lay them on that way as well. Start at the bottom, work up in layers, and then you put the next layer on, and then the next layer, and you can interweave them as you go on, so the ends and the sticks are all interwoven into each other, and that will actually make a good strong shelter. If you want to make it waterproof, put a tarp under it first, and then put your boughs on top, so that as the snow melts in the night, you don't get wet. That's something you only ever do once. Yeah, your shelter will warm up because you've got a decent sized fire, because you remember to light a proper fire, and then all the snow and the moisture that's in the branches will unfortunately drip on you all night. That is not a pleasant thing. Not like you can do about it once you've built it. So yeah, try to build it in such a way that you don't have that problem, and put in a tarp underneath it before you put the branches on. Perfect way to do it. It doesn't look as bushcrafty, it doesn't look quite as Grizzly Adams-y and all that kind of stuff. Forget all that crap. It's great for movies, great for films, but in the real world, you want to survive. You want a shelter that you can actually survive in. If you want to know how it's done, there are some very, very good books. Mors Kahansky, he's no longer with us, unfortunately, not in person, but his books and his videos and everything live on. And he is considered the Yoda of bushcraft around here, and many parts of the world too. There's Bruce Sawalski, Ray Mears. In England there's a guy called Nick who does Hidden Valley Bushcraft, Survival Russia, all these places. There are some very, very good YouTube channels out there, but I have noticed a proliferation of what I call bushcraft clickbait, and a lot of it is not just misinformation, it's dangerous information. So do your homework and go from there. Now, my plan today was not to come and moan about crappy bushcraft videos, was to actually come down here, and what I wanted to do, let's get the camera out of there, what I wanted to do was actually a time-lapse of the ice melting down here. That was my plan. I was going to set my camera up right there, and a couple of days ago I came down here and all this ice was actually flowing, and as you can see it's flowing still, but incredibly slowly. Millimeters. Yeah, that it just shows you how much ice is built up. So either way, if you're going to get out and about and do bushcraft stuff, by all means do it. I love to see people doing it. It's a great thing to learn. It's great to be outdoors and what have you and doing these things. I'm all for it. And I saw a young lady had a channel there. She was starting out, been doing it probably for a year or two. She had some good videos on there. Needed a bit of extra information about building fires in snow and stuff, but she was very receptive to the information, and that's what you want. You learn. So I've been doing this for 50 odd years. My first solo camping trip was when I was 8 years old, for God's sake, and I learnt the hard way that building a shelter is not as easy as you might think. I ended up spending the night wrapped up in plastic, literally a piece of plastic that I'd taken. I had this vision of making a tent out of, and no fire because it was pouring hard with rain, and I actually literally wrapped myself up in plastic for the entire night, shivering, because I had no way of building a shelter or a fire because I hadn't learnt those skills at that time. So you think you know how to do it, and then nature soon teaches you otherwise. Yeah, never mess with Mother Nature, because she'll teach you harsh lessons very, very quickly. Right, so I'm going to head back out of here since I don't have an ice flow, and hopefully I didn't bore you to death with the video, my rant on bushcraft videos. As I say, I'm very keen to see people get out and learn bushcraft skills. It's great fun. It's a really good thing to do, but learn the skills, learn how to do it properly. And if you're not sure, you know, you don't go out and do a -20 solo bushcraft and all that, because it looks great in the little thumbnails, because that's all people care about. They just want the social recognition, but it looks great. But if you're going out and doing -20, -30 for the first time ever, take a group of you, you know. Make sure you've got 3 or 4 people with you. Make sure you've got all your gear. You've got some means of calling for help if you need it, you know. Don't just go out in the middle of nowhere on your own until you know what you're doing. I mean, I do it quite a lot, but I know what I'm doing and I accept that risk. But a lot of people, I see them doing it and you're like, Jesus Christ, you're lucky to be alive, you know. And people have no clue. So learn the skills, get on one of these courses. There's many, many good courses out there. No matter where you are in the world, there's people running really good courses. So learn the skills, do it properly. Yeah. And that, I think, is the end of that video. Thanks for watching.